Hello, everybody, and welcome to Canisius College. It's a pleasure to have you all here today, and welcome especially to the Symposium on Ecotourism, examining whether or not we humans truly have a partnership with nature in this endeavor. We are under the auspices of the Canisius College Institute for the Study of Human-Animal Relations. My name is Michael Noonan, and I'm the director of that institute. In this institute, we are dedicated to examining the ways in which we humans, mankind itself, interacts with other species. And increasingly, we do so via ecotourism. Increasingly, we go out into nature on a specific, with a specific agenda of encountering animals or encountering nature. And so this deserves to be part of and is part of our agenda in the ISHAR, the Institute of the Study of Human-Animal Relations. In formulating this program, I consulted and got great advice from one of our speakers, David Fennell, who is here from Brock University. So I'm delighted to have co-sponsorship with Brock University, and can't thank David enough for his advice in putting this program together. I'm also very proud that our program is co-sponsored by the Canisius College Fitzpatrick Institute for Public Affairs. This is a fantastic institute that is partners with us and parallel with us in asking policy questions about how we conduct ourselves. Often these are political questions, but they are also very much interested in ecological issues that relate to policy, and so they're a great partner. And all of those of you who are speakers today, be aware that the first speaker in the Fitzpatrick series was Harry Truman, the President of the United States. So you're following in Harry Truman's footsteps. And the first speaker in the ISHAR series was Jane Goodall. So we are in following in very, very excellent footsteps. Our program at Canisius, we have the country's largest program focused on animal behavior at the undergraduate level, and at the graduate level, we focus on anthrozoology, this discipline that focuses on human-animal relations. And as I explained, I see ecotourism as very much central in that discipline. And it reflects, doesn't it, a biophilia, the concept of biophilia, that humans have a love for nature and for other animals in some deep sense. And that is something that we may maybe explore. But surely that's one of the motives that will make people pay money to go far away in order to experience seeing a gorilla or experience seeing a whale and so on. So we'll examine that. In anthrozoology, I often think of a construct like this. So imagine a two-dimensional graph. Don't imagine it. Look at this two-dimensional graph in which one can imagine there's a positive experience for a human, positive valence for the human, or negative, and a positive experience, a positive outcome for the non-human animal, or negative. And so down in this lower quadrant, the lower right quadrant, it can be positive for the animal but negative for the human. That's a relatively rare event, but one can imagine if we were altruistically helping an animal that was injured, that would be an example where we would spend our money, therefore we would have a negative consequence, but the animal would benefit. Over here is negative for both, and this is also a relatively rare event in modern times, but this might be a case where an animal is diseased and disease spreads to the humans, and everybody loses under those circumstances. But here, positive for the human and negative for the animal is, quite frankly, where most of our human-animal relationships take place. And so, for an obvious example is when we eat them. You know, the animal clearly is consumed. We get a meal, presumably pleasure from the food, but the animal's life is taken. Or if we put an animal in captivity in research or in zoos, the animal is less thrilled than negatively impacted, but the benefit to the human presumably can document it. But here on this positive is where people in the ecotourism business often claim their industry is. And frankly, I feel like maybe it is, but that's why we're here. So you see I've added question marks to that equation. Is ecotourism really truly a win-win equation for nature, for the animals, and the way many tour operators say it is, and the way many clients believe it is. And that, if anything, is the critical question that I'm going to ask this panel to debate over the next 2 days, along with others. Now, our agenda for these 2 days is to question assumptions. I've just made a case for one, and maybe it's a win-win situation. Let's question that. Let's actually define what the critical variables would be in deciding that, and identify them and evaluate them, and see if a case can be made. But not just on the one that I just raised. I challenge all the panelists and the speakers that will be with us to come up with their own questions and teach me and teach each other about the issues that really should be raised. Among the issues that surely should be raised is corporate responsibility. Tourism is a business, and they have an agenda, and it's a legitimate agenda. But on the other hand, they're impacting nature, and how they do so and responsibly is something we should surely look at. In my own experience, which you'll learn about as the symposium goes along, I've become very focused also on the behavior of the clients, of the tourists themselves, and we should try to define for ourselves, I hope over these days, at least to have in the background how an ecotourist should behave, and what responsibilities we bring when we engage in this. So what that boils down to is maybe a conversation about best practices. Optimizing this cost-benefit ratio that I outlined in that 2x2 perspective. And so in a way, I'm asking, how do we optimize, from the Institute's point of view, this anthrozoological view of this anthropological view of this equation?